Okay, more Mage changes, and most of them have to do with the journal tree, and then kind of a little bit, but for Arcane and Fire, not so much for Frost. But we have this talent, which is basically just barrier removed, reduces cooldown by 4 seconds. Kind of the annoying way to make your defensive stronger, because it means you still have to press more barriers as opposed to them just making the barrier itself stronger. And this is just located right here where Dragon's Breath is, and then they move Dragon's Breath down to gate 2. So now if you want to shift around your capstone node stuff, it's easier, right? Because before, if you wanted to take like displacement, you pretty much just have to remove mass barrier and then generally Dragon's Breath. But now you could just take displacement and not remove Dragon's Breath. You'd still have it, you'd just only be missing mass barrier. Yeah. They also added Supernova to the journal tree and then just threw it on a choice node with Dragon's Breath, and then they increased its cooldown to 45 seconds, which is kind of weird because they didn't buff it all. So it's meant to be a utility spell, but it only knocks up the main target. This is kind of just better for Arcane since it has the node in its hero tree that gives you that super buff Supernova. Now they don't need to waste talent points on it in their class tree. So that's good. This is not good though. They made Ice Nova a choice node with Ring of Frost, right? So over here, Ice Nova and Ring of Frost. This is only just the only thing this does is just it's a nerf to Frost utility because Arcane and Fire don't need Ice Nova, so they will only ever talent Ring of Frost. But Frost essentially needs Ice Nova because it's far better than Frost Nova. So it just then wouldn't want to take Ring of Frost. Then high end plus, you actually use Ring of Frost quite a lot. So they should probably change that. If they want to condense nodes in this area, get rid of one of these two nodes. They're useless, right? This is 2 seconds of Frost Nova duration, and this is 80% increase. It doesn't matter. They both suck, and then this sucks. So, yeah. Remove one of those. Keep those separate. So Frost isn't worse, but maybe they don't learn that. They remove Mass Slow, which is fine. It wasn't really used. And then they just changed a few things with Sun Fury, like the fact that how it casts a weaker meteor essentially as an exceptional spell. And then they made it so this is not a DPS loss, probably. Instead, it's just casts it alongside their first cast. That's pretty good. This might actually be a go-to now. And they probably nerfed this for PvP because it used to be, I guess, that spell stole every second, which would be OP in PvP, and now it's just twice, which isn't that bad. Yeah, and then I don't think those matter. They tried to make battery less annoying because now it'll be 10 seconds longer than our current 2 set, so it'll be a little easier to upkeep. And it only stacks to 4 times instead of 5, which means that's closer to our current 4 set in terms of how fast you proc it and everything. But yeah, also less of a damage buff, so it's less important. And Lay Drinker makes sense because it triggers after you consume Nether Precision 5 times. So now you'd actually have Nether Precision when you consume it, because before if it was 6, you need to consume 3 rounds of Nether Precision, and then you'd be out of them. But now, you'd actually have it when you use your Arcane Blast. So, good. They made Kraken Energy improve Arcane Missiles 1 point, so Arcane can actually talent things now, which is great, because those sucked. Also meant, like, in the first gate, Arcane was taking more than the required points, just because they had to take these 2-point nodes to get past it. So they put Reverberate in the second gate, which is good because otherwise Arcane's A rotation would feel pretty slow if you feel like a bit of famine of Orb Barrage procs. But when we have Reverberate, we Arcane Explosion a lot less, which means we spend less mana, which means we have very low clear casting still. So, and nothing they really have done would make us generate clear casting AoE unless they actually give Barrage a mana cost, which they should. And then Rule 3 was removed, which is fine. No one used that as dead. And then Supernova, because it went on the general tree. Implemented this, nerfed Fever and Incantation, did a bunch of tuning stuff for the Living Bomb thing, which basically needs Living Bomb to do way more damage, less of this. But yeah. They did put this in the first gate, which is here. Which this is pretty good, because this is the one where it then causes your Flame Strikes to cast faster, so maybe that'll be taken at some point now, but who knows. It's in a very weird spot because it just goes straight into all these Living Bomb talents that don't really matter. It would kind of make more sense for it to be like maybe, I don't know, here past like Flame Patch and Quick Flame or whatever, but it's okay. And then they did these two things. I don't know what this mean. And then they did this, where they made Frost Ice Barrier do 24% max health instead of 22. All of the other mage specs are just 20% max health, so Frost already had a stronger barrier. Not that it really matters. Now it's 24%, which to me kind of seems like a bit of an acknowledgement like this, where if you look at raid stats for deaths, you just see like fire near the top, and then arcane drops down to the middle, and then frost drops down to like the lower quartile. Right? There's obviously a massive imbalance between like mage defensiveness. It's not like fire mage is just not dying because it's fire mage. It's not dying because it's cauterize, and arcane's dying less because most damage in raid is magic and it has prismatic barrier, which is really strong. And then frost has cold snap, which is kind of useless. So really what they should have done is what they did for Arcane, where with Arcane they baselined improved prismatic barrier for the war within. So that's going to make Arcane very, very strong because that's OP. Not as good as Cauterize though. But for Frost, they for some reason don't want to touch Cold Snap. They could just make Cold Snap a passive and have you always have 2 charges of barrier and 2 charges of block. That'd be great. They could make it, they give you temporary charges so that you aren't resetting the cooldown of your major defensives every time you use it. So then you could have, an ice cold use, and then if it comes up in 22 seconds, you'll have it again instead of fully resetting the CD, which is pretty bad, and it just loses you, or doesn't really increase your uses per encounter because it resets the CD. I mean, they have that because of the time spiral and everything, so definitely a necessary change at least to that, if not make it passive. The passive would be a lot better if you want to try and make it more balanced between the mage specs, really. Though the best thing, of course, is just to throw it on a choice node in the general tree. And probably still do the temporary charges thing, because cold snap sucks, so no one would ever take it. But everyone would take cauterize, because who we're kidding, Anyway. Hopefully we'll see talent changes to Frost at some point from everything they've done. Death Chill just doesn't really work. Deathborn doesn't really work. It's not a very healthy playstyle either, and they can't balance it, really. So, yeah. Goodbye.